It's my pleasure to welcome you today to the State of the State discussion with Governor Polis and many just fantastic Colorado leaders. I'm Jennifer Landers, and I'm the Executive Director of Civico, and we're proud to partner with the Colorado Business Roundtable on this event, but on so much more and so many possibilities. Civico is a nonprofit organization that inspires, develops, and activates civic-minded leadership. We do that through our programs, including the Governor's Fellowship Program, the Governor's Citizenship Medal Program, of which we have an honoree here today. Ball Corporation will be receiving the Vanguard Legacy Medal tonight for their work in corporate citizenship. We also have Colorado Young Leaders. Through all of these programs, we develop cross-generational leadership skills, we inspire others to do more, and we create an urgency around a call to action for people to make Colorado a better place. Our partnership with Colorado Business Roundtable is really built on alignment. Both of our organizations believe that people are part of what makes good in our state, a force for good, if I can use Debbie's words. Across sectors, across organizations, communities, and neighborhoods, we can leverage our passion and our purpose to make a difference to help Colorado thrive. It's now my pleasure to introduce Rebecca Kirsting. Rebecca serves as co-president of CAP Logistics and is Colorado Business Roundtable board member. At CAP, Rebecca leads staffing and operational processes to ensure that CAP provides over-the-top customer service and customized solutions to its impressive customer base. Please welcome Rebecca, who will share more about her involvement with Colorado Business Roundtable and introduce a new initiative.
I think I just scared Jennifer and snuck up behind her. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Debbie, and all of the Cobert members for allowing me to speak on behalf of Cobert and my company, CAP Logistics. When I was a year old, my parents took a mortgage out to start CAP Logistics in the basement of their home. On April 1st, 1982, my dad went on the road to sell as my mom sat by the phone. 3 days later, they moved their first shipment. Today, I'm proud to be a part of the company that my parents started. From our Denver-based company, we provide customized shipping solutions to support key industries including oil and gas, mining, construction, food and beverage, aviation and aerospace, power generation, and more throughout all 50 states, all the provinces of Canada, and throughout the world. We were honored to be named as a top workplace in 2022 by the Denver Post. We're further fulfilled by using our logistics and business prowess to partner with nonprofits, government, and academia to do good in our community and beyond. Together, we've been able to import masks for essential workers during COVID-19, provide relief to areas impacted by severe weather, deliver surplus coats from U.S. ski resorts to provide warmth overseas, create goodwill in other countries by moving donated skis for the U.S. Olympic Committee, and supporting education in South African townships by delivering donated books to their rural schools. It is with this belief that it is good business to be a good neighbor that CAP Logistics is proud to be a member of the Colorado Business Roundtable. It's easy to forget that Colorado businesses aren't buildings, they're people. Business owners, employees, suppliers, investors that make up the foundation of our economic success. When business succeeds, people succeed, and Colorado succeeds. This shared success and interconnectivity is critical to keeping all four corners of Colorado economically vibrant. We've put together a short video with some of our Cobert partners to talk about why they're involved and to highlight the policy pillars we work on together.
The Colorado Business Roundtable is a really important organization, and I think we are, as a business community, stronger together.
Colorado Business Roundtable is a collection of business leaders who believe and understand that business is a force for good.
Well, I love the Colorado Business Roundtable, and what I like about it is that it understands that business is the lifeblood of a community. It creates jobs, and when we can team as a set of Colorado businesses with Colorado government, we are incredibly powerful.
Very excited to be a part of an organization that helps advance the voice of business and really helps to illustrate the value proposition that businesses bring to our customers, our communities, and the people that we serve in the state.
I see us as a workforce pipeline, and I think the only way that you can do that effectively is if you are collaborating and working with the people who you're creating the workforce for.
When we talk about policy issues together, when we bring people together for our roundtables, for some of our thought leadership forums, oftentimes it's the unintended consequences that come up on a particular policy, a ballot issue, perhaps a rulemaking, and how it affects business today. And we want to make sure that our folks, these large employers who provide so much to Colorado, have a seat at that table.
I love what the Roundtable stands for. I believe that we all need to run our business as if it was a for-profit business. Iron sharpens iron.
The Colorado Business Roundtable is a great avenue to be able to connect with our state leadership, to help them think about the future and help guide them through a lot of the institutional knowledge that each one of us have on the board.
I'm involved with the Colorado Business Roundtable because I'm a huge believer in the partnership between education and employers in strengthening the talent pipeline, which is so important to the future economy of Colorado.
Engage with the business community to promote a healthy and very inclusive environment.
When the regulatory environment is uncertain, changing a lot, and depends a lot on discretion, well, the rules aren't really clear, so you might be able to get the permits to do that, but then again, you might not. And you've got to go through a year-long process, spending millions of dollars trying to hold resources, not sure if you can develop them or not. Obviously, that's an environment that chills investment, and it chills hiring. We've seen a large amount of the Colorado oil and gas industry move.
The Colorado Women's Chamber has found great synergy with COBORT because we find alignment with all of their values, but if I had to pick one, which is tough to do, it would be the reimagination of Colorado's workforce.
There's been a lot of challenges finding the people that we need to do the work that we have. Don't necessarily always have the right people and right skill sets in Colorado, and that's a challenge I think lots of folks are grappling with, and our higher ed institutions are grappling with what kind of skills do they need to be providing so that when kids hit the employment market, they are employable right off the bat. And so that's probably been the biggest challenge for us, frankly.
We need to promote education within our communities. That is the most important thing that we can give the future generations. For me, it would be give us the tools so we can keep improving, so we can keep growing.
Infrastructure of all sorts, whether it's utility infrastructure, whether it's telecommunications and broadband, really is going to be a part of the engine that drives economic prosperity, economic vitality. So I think I'll just say, we saw during the pandemic, candidly, the importance of broadband infrastructure for our children to be able to learn remotely and for people to be able to participate in our economy. Infrastructure is key.
Lead with a purpose. I think of it more as a philosophy, as a policy. I think if in your heart you believe that you're here to serve other people, you can't not lead with a purpose.
Colorado is on the right track in equipping impact in our communities. A perfect example of this was when we experienced the devastation of Marshall Fire. We evacuated the hospital, including a couple of moms who were delivering babies. It was an extraordinary feat. And then the rebuilding began. The outpouring of generosity from the community, from individuals, from corporations, from foundations and institutions was really staggering.
We're excited that we've pulled together such tremendous partners from academia, business, community, and government as part of Colorado Business Roundtable, and we invite you to join us. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm Debbie Brown, President of the Colorado Business Roundtable, and well, thank you. Those were the friends who didn't see their face up really big, and they're like, thank you for not including me. I had that comment from Robert as I came up. He's like, oh, okay, I get to see myself on the big screen. First, we'd like to thank Governor Polis for joining us today, and we look forward to a robust conversation, in particular around Colorado's economic and business priorities for our state. As the state affiliate of the Business Roundtable based in Washington, D.C., we work on long-term issues around the state, federal issues, and sometimes even global issues. As major employers in every state, Business Roundtable CEOs lead companies that support 37 million American jobs, generate $10 trillion in sales activity, and account for 24% of the U.S. GDP. Additionally, Roundtable companies pay 37% higher wages annually and provide $1.4 trillion in federal, state, and local taxes. Our partners are large employers that make up what we call the ABCG: academia, business, community, and government. And you can see some of our partners that we want to highlight here today. The conversation today will be an opportunity to unpack the governor's economic and business priorities, and we're excited for that opportunity. And it's really a follow-up conversation for these CEOs and market presidents to ask questions about those priorities. We're grateful. In particular, I was able to see the governor's State of the State address at the Capitol, and we're grateful for his call for bipartisanship, and we agree. When we all work together and collaborate, we're able to come up with policies that are better. He also outlined big issues that affect all of us in the employer community, from housing, water, taxes, et cetera, and these are the types of issues that we're going to be talking about. There's a lot at stake, as most of you know. Many of you are employers in this room. The Business Roundtable releases a quarterly CEO Outlook survey, and the look was a little bit pessimistic, unfortunately, going into 2023. Plans for hiring decreased 17 points. Plans for capital investment decreased 7 points, and expectations for sales decreased 8 points. This is a national figure. CEOs remained cautious going into 2023, and several factors were top of mind. Not only continuing supply chain challenges, but inflationary pressure, energy and regulatory costs as well. So framing the conversation, you saw a little bit about our policy pillars, and we asked the different market presidents and CEOs to think about these pillars in terms of how they brought questions to the table today. First is about prioritizing a tax and regulatory agenda, a competitive tax and regulatory agenda. Knowing that Colorado's economy continues to rank high in comparison to other states, there is concern from the business community, however, that new taxes, new regulations continue to contribute to a higher cost to doing business in our state, and public policy affects the impact on these costs. I want to thank Jeff Bloomquist with JP Morgan for leading this pillar for our group, working on economic growth, tax policy, and smart regulation. Few topics in the business community are more hotly debated right now than ESG, for example. We're going to be hosting our first policy pillar roundtable in February, and we'd invite you to join us. We have Michael Lane with BlackRock coming to town, bringing thought leadership, as well as Chris Wright. Many of you know him here in Colorado as the president of Liberty Energy. So it will be a feisty and frank and fair conversation about ESG, and this will be a kickoff for some other roundtables that we have throughout the year. Our second policy pillar that will come up today is about reimagining Colorado's workforce. Dave Shunk, who is here today as the president of Volunteers of America, leads this pillar, and he constantly reminds us about the dignity of work and how a job provides sustainable pathways to opportunity and ultimately human flourishing. We talk about building a tomorrow-ready workforce, modernizing training pipelines, embracing technology, and strengthening post-secondary options so all Coloradans have an opportunity, whether it's in aerospace, bioscience, construction, or any opportunity that they want to have for themselves. You'll see that Cobert has been active in the 1330 Task Force, stackable credential pathways, and now on the Opportunity Now grant as well. Our third pillar is about investing in a future-forward infrastructure. We're doing great work, of course, in the state on that arena with water quality and quantity, transportation, aviation, energy, broadband, and 5G access. And we're excited that Robert from Excel is here today to talk specifically about some other infrastructure opportunities. Our fourth pillar is about leading with purpose, our community pillar. As you all know who work in the employer community, many companies and organizations that serve our Colorado communities take ongoing, significant action to support people in need and improve quality of life for all. Some of our biggest challenges that we're facing right now as a state, affordability, community safety, health and well-being, can only be confronted when leaders from every sector work together to find and implement solutions. Leading this pillar for our group is Lloyd Lewis, the CEO of ARC Thrift Stores. And I'm grateful to highlight a couple of our other nonprofit leaders who are in the room with A Precious Child, YMCA of the Rockies, and Volunteers of America. So Colorado has a foundation for growth, and yet we find ourselves at a crossroads. There are many issues that are important to you all today. We could probably take our own poll and decide what issues rank towards the top. But we can secure our footing in a global economy by championing economic competitiveness through these pillars, and these are the ones that we're working on this year. And we believe with those pillars in mind, Colorado will remain a place to live, work, play, and innovate. So we invite you to join us if you'd like more information about Cobert after the program. Happy to be a part of that. So at this point, I want to go ahead and bring up our panel, who will be having the discussion with the governor, and then we'll introduce the governor. So if the panel, you want to start making your way up as I introduce you and have a seat, we'll save the center spot for Governor Polis. First up is Lorena Cantarovici. I hope I said that right. Cantarovici. She is the founder and CEO of Maria Empanada. How many have had Maria Empanada? Okay. Okay, show her the hands again. The whole audience raised their hand. And anybody who didn't raise their hand is completely jealous because you want to get, Lorena already promised me we're going to go get something to eat at some point here. But what a dynamo. She's the founder and CEO of Maria Empanada, came to Denver from Argentina with only $300 in her pocket, but was determined to make it by selling empanadas from her kitchen. 11 years and multiple locations later, that effort has paid off with national and international media coverage and even earning the U.S. Business Administration's Small Business Person of the Year award for the state of Colorado. Welcome, Lorena. Next, I want to welcome Dave Eddy. Dave, go ahead and make your way up. Dave is part of the Colorado Roundtable Board of Directors. He's been with the Boeing Company for 34 years, and Dave will probably want me to ask who's ridden on a Boeing jet, but that's probably pretty obvious. He is the Boeing Site Director for the Aurora and Colorado Springs locations, and he is the Boeing Program Manager on the GPS OCX program, and also serves as the president of the Boeing Leadership Network Association for the Colorado chapter. Dave serves as a STEM champion. If any of you know, it's one of his favorite topics is education, and he is devoted to help improve the K-12 educational system here in Colorado. Join me in welcoming Dave Eddy. And next up is Robert Kinney. Robert is new to his role. Some of you might not have met him yet, president of Xcel Energy Colorado. In this role, he is responsible for executive leadership and strategic guidance of state and local government and regulatory affairs, as well as customer and community relations and charitable giving for the many Colorado communities Xcel Energy serves. So join me in welcoming Robert. Next, really honored to welcome Michelle Marks, the Chancellor of University of Colorado, Denver. An innovator dedicated to making higher education equitable for the good of society, Dr. Marks believes the urgent national need for equitable education, amplified in this time of great societal change, demands long-term solutions.
She is leading CU Denver to address longstanding structural inequities through a reimagined approach to lifelong learning. And I would say if you haven't had a chance to meet with Michelle personally about her expertise in education, I encourage you to find time to meet with her in the next month or two. A real dynamo, and Colorado's lucky to have her. Welcome, Michelle. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Luigi, but he can sit tight until we're ready for the moderated part. He gets an extra chance to eat. Luigi Del Puerto is the editor of Colorado Politics in the Denver Gazette. He's going to serve as our moderator today. A veteran political reporter and award-winning journalist, Luigi serves as editor of the Denver Gazette and Colorado Politics. He was previously the publisher and editor of Arizona Capital Times, a Phoenix-based media company that covers public policy and politics. A native of the Philippines, Del Puerto cut his journalistic teeth covering crime in the streets of Metro Manila and pursued stories about labor, elections, and national security. So thank you, Luigi. I think you can handle a panel if you were busy in Manila handling all that other stuff. And welcome everybody again. And Jen Landers, before I give up the microphone, I want to say thanks for doing the hard work of welcoming people at the very beginning. That was a tougher, I don't see where you sat, but that was a tougher ask. And again, thank you for the folks who are here from my board of directors. I'm grateful for you. So now we're going to get to the meat of the program, and you should be enjoying your lunch. And we're excited that Governor Polis is willing to every year do this event with us and have a conversation about how we can all work together on these business issues that are so pressing to our economy. So with that, I'm going to introduce the governor for some brief remarks, and then we'll go ahead and kick the panel off. So you probably already know about Governor Polis, but he is an entrepreneur, an education leader, and public servant. After launching several successful companies, Governor Polis committed himself to make sure other Coloradans had the opportunity to pursue their dreams through founding schools for at-risk students and new immigrants and starting nonprofits to help veterans. Join me in welcoming Governor Polis. Are you going to come that way? The stairs are on the other side. Okay. This worked well. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie, for the introduction. Thank you for all your work. Debbie, also personally on the 1330 Task Force, the Credentialing Pathways Committee. Really appreciate everything you bring. I want to thank the Colorado Business Roundtable for hosting this important conversation. Jen Landers, everybody at Civico. I saw there's some honorees here tonight. We'll be presenting the Governor's Citizenship Medal ceremony tonight. And of course, all of the members who empower this very important work. It's great to be back for another Colorado Business Roundtable discussion session. It was just last week I delivered my first State of the State address of my second term as governor of Colorado. Since it was an hour and 6 minutes, I won't repeat it for you here today. But I just want to highlight a couple of the biggest challenges that the business community faces and kind of what we want to lean into in terms of solutions. The two biggest challenges, I think, and I hear this from many companies, and these probably rank very high for all of you, are housing and workforce. And obviously the two are related. Workforce needs a place to live. Housing affordability in our state, and of course workforce. One of the drivers is housing, but also looking at other things, training, skills, childcare, all of those kinds of solutions that can make sure that you're able to attract and retain the people that you need in our state to be able to continue to succeed. So those are two that we're very much leaning into. Creating more housing now for every Colorado budget isn't just important for quality of life in our state, it's essential for our businesses to be able to succeed. If people can't afford to live in our state, we risk the ability of businesses to find the talent that they need to power our economy forward. So we're looking forward to working with you on moving the bar at the state level with more flexible zoning, streamlined regulations that cut through red tape, expedited approval processes for projects, and more building in transit-oriented communities, and more opportunities for people to live close to where jobs are, rather than further out, with more time lost in commute, more traffic on our roads, and more pollution in our air. In addition to creating more housing opportunities, we're also focused on strengthening and upskilling our workforce. Right now, there are 2 job openings for every unemployed person in our state. But there's also a mismatch of skills, and we need to make sure more people have the opportunity and the skills to fill some of those jobs that are available. Not everyone will want or need a 4-year degree. We need to make sure we have training opportunities that really meet the real-life needs of both our workers and of our business community and the jobs that they need to fill. And we took important steps with last year's package, and we're continuing to work to expand free training, growing from the base we did in the healthcare fields, including EMT and nurse assistant, to other important fields like construction and firefighting and law enforcement. We also want more graduating high school seniors to get the training or certifications they need while in high school or through an apprenticeship. Because the more workers that have the skills they need means, of course, they have the opportunities to earn a good living, and it means stronger businesses and stronger communities and stronger economic growth for the state. We also are very excited this fall to be launching universal preschool for every 4-year-old in the state. In addition to our, thank you. And the demand is huge. 17,000 parents already, providers are signed up, and we're very excited about the benefits for the kids first and foremost, but also to the workforce, empowering parents to return to the workforce sooner if they choose. The last thing I want to touch on is public safety. We want to make sure that we achieve our goal of making Colorado one of the 10 safest states over the next 5 years. We took important steps last session with the bipartisan package, investing in law enforcement and community organizations and preventing crime before it occurs. This year, we're also seeking support for local law enforcement, funding for recruiting and retention, and specific resources around cracking down on auto theft, including through technology, as well as through supporting the work of prosecutors and DAs to focus and bring to justice those who engage in auto theft. We're also seeking investments to expand the capacity of Colorado Bureau of Investigations to support local investigations, crime prevention, and improving school safety. So a comprehensive approach, obviously, law enforcement being driven by our local partners, our municipal police and sheriff's departments, but the state wants to make sure that we are seen as partners in helping to improve the safety of every community across our state. Those are just some of the issues. The Business Roundtable is a very important partner in this work. We really look forward to working alongside you on housing, on workforce, on public safety, and many other key issues to help make sure that the Colorado business environment remains one of the most favorable and competitive in the country. And I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Hello? Well,
yeah. Hi. Good. Is it morning? No. Happy noontime. Debbie didn't say that my wife was a nurse of the year. My sister-in-law, her sister was a teacher of the year. She teaches at a grade school, and it dawned on me at that point that I'm the weak link in the family.
Journalist of the year. Journalist of the year.
Let me just start by asking the governor a really quick question. Governor, do you have like one of those Colorado ties, or do you have like a dozen of them?
A whole closet full.
Awesome. The way it's going to work is that we're going to ask our panel members to ask the governor questions that are important to them, and so let's get on it. Oh, you know what? Before that, really quickly, show of hands. How many of you have a subscription to Colorado Politics? That is awesome. How many of you have a subscription to the Denver Gazette? I got my work cut out for me then. If you don't have one, let me know. I'll get you squared away, okay? All right, so I think Lorena has the first set of questions for our governor. Why don't you go ahead and fire away?
I was ready, but you came right on time. Okay, Maria Empanada employs more than Boeing, more than Excel, and more of University of Colorado, and we paid like $3 million of taxes last year, so thank you for having me, Governor. I deserve it to be here. It was a joke, okay? Anyways, and because English is my second language, and when I am in front of doctors and politicians, I prefer to be clear, so I will be reading my question to be clear. Governor, it has been the experience of many small businesses that they are having a difficult time finding people, not only to work within their businesses, but in finding outside vendors to service their business due to the shortage of personnel. For example, equipment repair professionals are in short supply in virtually every industry. The company that delivers raw materials to 50% of the restaurants in town is desperate for more truck drivers. Cost contractions have skyrocketed, and a major reason is a shortage of workers. Hotels are operating with skeleton crews because they cannot find people. Skeleton crews, they cannot find people, and there are hardly any applicants. Few people seem to want the everyday essential jobs that keep our economy moving. And yet, at the same time, we are getting thousands of immigrants into this country that see those kinds of jobs as dream jobs. Stable employment with honest employers. They have the ability to be useful and in demand. They are this desperate desire to learn a trade, and yes, they pay their taxes. So we have this absurd scenario of a huge amount of job openings from employers who are desperate to hire and train, and immigrants who are desperate for a job, but the immigration system does not allow for them to help one another. How can Colorado be innovated here? How can we lead in immigration reform and boost our economy in the process?
Thank you, Lorena. And as you know, small businesses like yours employ far more people than Boeing and Excel and all of the big companies. So small businesses are really the cornerstone of our economy. So there's a lot of truth, and it's very important that small businesses are represented on this stage. And there's always some discussion about what small business, means. Is it up to 250 people? Is it up to 500 people? Is it up to 30 people? But, it really is the backbone of our economy. I addressed a couple areas that we all identify the sort of lack of workforce, right, and how we address it. So housing, childcare, preschool, the skills, helping people get the skills they need for the workforce. There are, as you talked about, Lorena, people that are here today that are underutilized or unutilized and want to work and have the capability to do that. What prevents it or holds it back is federal law. And so we, and I am a strong supporter of federal immigration reform, any and all. So, we always talk about comprehensive reform, which means border security, a pathway to citizenship for people already here, addressing the future flows. But at this point, any and all. So most immediately, we've called on Secretary Mayorkas and the White House to give temporary protected status, TPS, to another round of Venezuelans who've arrived in our country. So they have the immediate ability to work. Venezuelans who arrived prior to March 21 had TPS, were able to work, and we would like to see that again, because otherwise it could take many months or years to adjudicate asylum claims, and they might be able to work at some point, but how do you support yourself for a year when you can't work and you want to work? So rather than become a public responsibility to support people, we simply want to empower people to be able to support themselves and empower our economy. So I do hope that the administration moves forward with TPS for Venezuelans, and as well as any and all immigration reform that would allow people to deploy their skills and talents here to make our country greater.
And Governor, just a fine point on this one. This is really a federal issue. Not much we can do here at the state, correct?
There's the ability to work legally in our country is determined by the federal government. There certainly are many undocumented residents of Colorado. The state will, unless they're committing some crime, we certainly don't turn them into the feds or engage in any enforcement unless they're violating our laws. But the ability to work is conferred by the federal government. If we could do it, we would. And that's one of the ideas for immigration reform, is let states issue provisional work permits, and I would totally support that too. if the federal government gave states like ours the ability to issue provisional work permits, we would then be able to do so.
Lorena, go ahead.
I want to ask you about this new House bill that is the number 231118, the Fair Work Week Employment Standards Bill that was introduced on Tuesday. I am very nervous about the requirements and reporting for our businesses, as well as the lack of flexibility it will allow my employees in their schedules, which is something that they value very highly. Where do you stand on this bill?
Well, there's going to be, or there are, upwards of 600 or so, or 700 bills. I obviously haven't seen that bill yet. I want to support anything that makes it easier for businesses to operate in our state, reduces regulations and red tape. So we'll certainly look forward to working with all of you to make sure that we can make Colorado more competitive, and look forward to evaluating bills that are good and bad and indifferent to that as we make our assessments about what our state should do.
I do have a question in homelessness. I want to ask you the problem in our state. I once thought the reason people were homeless was that they had addiction problems, but in researching the issue, I now understand that the leading cause of homelessness is lack of affordable housing. This seems like a solvable problem to me. I would like to know what you think the root problem of homelessness is in our state, and how do we solve this problem, and how do we set an example nationwide?
Whatever a city's or state's policies are around supporting addiction recovery and mental health, the biggest determinant of the level of homelessness is the cost of housing. So if we can make progress on housing reform in our state, that will lead to a reduction in homelessness. We also, of course, need to support cities across our state that are addressing the mental and behavioral health needs and substance abuse problems through treatment, helping folks get back to work. But of course, we need to make a major impact by reducing the cost of housing with more housing now.
Regarding the learning from other states, Colorado is a great place to live. But I'm sure there are other states that have programs or legislation that we can learn from. I am curious, what are programs or specific initiatives in other states that you admire, that you would like to emulate in Colorado so we can be that much more of the desired place to call home?
Yeah, we always try to learn from what works. These 50 states are the laboratories of democracy, so states that have tried things where they worked, we want to emulate those. And so some of our work around increasing the quantity of housing are policies that have been worked on and done by other states. We also want to avoid pitfalls that have made states less competitive for business or less safe or less prosperous. So really on any policy, we always like to look at evidence. And so data and evidence are key to me. And not, if we're the first mover, there won't be as much of that. But for many of the things people talk about, they've been tried somewhere, sometime, sometimes multiple times. And we want to look at those metrics to see what's worked and what hasn't worked.
Governor, really quickly, is there any legislation program from the great state of California that you might want to emulate here?
California, well, in my state of the state, one way I laid it out is we risk becoming California if we don't fix our housing problems now. And what that means is there's cities in California where the average home price is above $1 million, 16-lane highways, bumper to bumper through much of the day. If we want to avoid that in Colorado, we really need to have this very important land use smart planning discussion now, because after the fact, it's simply too late. And it's not something that fixes every problem we have tomorrow, but it fundamentally means in 3 years and 5 years, there will be more housing people can afford close to where jobs are, which means less time commuting, less traffic on our roads, more livability, more sustainability. And it's really the most important conversation our state will be having in the months and years ahead.
Thank you, Governor. Dave, go ahead, sir.
You bet. Thanks for being here, Governor. Good to see you again. My first question has to do with, as you're well aware, we're the #1 aerospace state in the nation per capita. Yes, California has more engineers, but they also have 39 million people. So a couple of months ago, you invited a number of us out to the mansion to discuss aerospace, the aerospace industry with the Lieutenant Governor and the new aerospace champion. I was wondering if you could share with the audience some of the things that you guys have talked about implementing or even legislation that could help aerospace continue to be number one.
Well, we're very excited about Colorado's thriving aerospace industry, both military and civilian. In listening to you and some of your colleagues in the industry, first of all, you're impacted by some of the same issues that affect every industry, like housing. Around workforce, there's particular challenges around making sure you have access to the training and skills needed. Again, some of it ties into housing. How do you recruit somebody to come to Colorado from California? We still, for instance, have a price advantage on housing, but without the right actions, we could lose that pricing advantage. It's rapidly eroding. But also partnerships with our schools, CU, Mine, CSU, and others on aerospace engineering, making sure we prepare the very best generation of aerospace engineers. And starting earlier, meaning how do we inspire future engineers in the middle school and high school level, people from diverse backgrounds to pursue skills in aerospace engineering, and making sure that we also have the right way that companies in Colorado can grow and succeed in this sector, and how the state can collaborate to make sure that Colorado continues our leadership role.
Thank you. My second question is in the economic forum. Obviously, with the latest successful launch of the SLS rocket and part of the Artemis program, the aerospace companies here are looking at some of the recent legislation that just passed that had to do with, yes, everybody voted to reduce the state income tax, but at the same time, the voters approved a couple of bills that would now limit the amount and where money could be spent going forward. So how do you see that whole balance of, yes, we want to put more money in the pockets of people in Colorado, but at the same time encourage the business climate and encourage more companies to move here?
I wasn't too concerned with any of the initiatives that were on the ballot or that passed or failed from a business climate perspective, meaning the various items that had money attached to them. There was a housing one, 123. There was a school lunch one. There was an income tax cut. None of those impacted the budget that we have for our schools for higher ed. They were all sort of either, in the case of housing, income tax cut, sort of dealing with surplus money above and beyond what we can use in the budget. Or in the case of the school lunch, it was effectively paid for by other changes of the tax code. So none of what the voters passed in any way impacted our ability to invest in schools or roads or anything else that's important for our competitiveness.
Thank you.
I should add a caveat to that. I mean, it's certainly theoretically possible if there was a severe recession that some of these cuts that it could actually be cuts. But, you know, the government would need to tighten its belt in a recession. That's normal. I would also add that the housing initiative 123 actually had a provision where if the state doesn't have that kind of surplus, then they can not expend that money.
And Governor, just a really quick question on that one. Dave, based on what you've looked at so far in terms of our revenue, and if I'm hearing you right, and do correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that we have enough revenue to pay for the expenses that we are anticipating currently and those that our legislators might want to spend more as well.
Yes, under both the legislative forecast and the governor's office of budget forecast, there would be surpluses. Even with their modeling of a recession, they would expect surpluses. Obviously, always subject to the performance of the economy. But as I would indicated, if there were to be a severe recession, one would expect that, like families have to tighten their belt, government would need to tighten their belt too.
Governor, my passion in the K-12 area is something that I take very seriously, and I applaud your early childhood efforts in making that available to everybody. My question in education has to do with workforce. Personal thank you for allowing me to serve on the steering committee for 1350. We had over 300 LOIs turned in by the deadline on Monday, and so that is an amazing program that we're going to be able to distribute funds to various programs throughout the state that I think can move the needle and be transformational in education. As I look at the money that is being spent per student, the concern that I see has to do with how much of that actual budget gets to the teacher salaries and curriculum versus the administration piece of it. Are we looking to provide legislation in your next couple of years that will put more money towards teachers, retain them, as well as the programs for the students?
So as a general rule, about just over 70% of the money in education reaches the classroom and teachers. But as you indicated, David, it's really a matter of local control. So the state does not direct or pay teachers. We provide some of the funding for school districts. They derive the rest of their funding from their local taxes. And then they decide how to allocate that. And that's why school board elections are very, very important. They are highly autonomous entities of local government responsible for educating our kids. Of course, there's a state role, and what that means is transparency, accountability, reporting. But we do not, and I don't think we should either, actually directly be employing the teachers or running the classrooms. I think that's best left up to local communities.
Thank you. My final question, you've been back in D.C. at the federal level as a legislator, and now your second term as governor. Can you share with us how your leadership style has changed, if any, and what some of the challenges and way you manage and the way you lead since being in both of those very interesting jobs?
Well, I really enjoy the executive side. You've probably all heard about the dysfunction of Congress, only gotten worse, I think, in recent years. My own background is similar to Lorena's. It's small business, meaning businesses with, growing from the startups to, I think the largest business I had was 230, 240 people when we sold it, a flour company. Moving to the legislative side, and now to the executive side, where it's more akin to running a large corporation. We have 31,000 employees in our state engaged in various lines of work, everything from clearing roads of snow to keeping prisoners in prison to, filing the other end of filing your taxes to patrolling our roads. So really a wide variety of activities, and really always seeking operational excellence in each division. I have 19 members of my cabinet. They each are accountable for their agency. I meet with them regularly, always talking about how we can get better results from their particular line of work, whether it's CDOT building more roads, and we deliver projects like the GAP under budget and ahead of schedule, or whether it's the work in Department of Agriculture supporting our farmers and ranchers of our state. So it's a really exciting enterprise. I'm really honored to have this opportunity to be CEO of the state, and appreciate the folks that have come to put their skills and talents to work for us to improve the efficiency of government.
Governor, before we ask Robert to ask a couple questions, just really quickly because we're talking about our aerospace industry and how we want to cultivate that and grow that and attract workers and, of course, obviously have the workforce then to be able to sustain that. Any word from the Biden administration on Space Command?
No, no. Like you, I did. I was pleased to see our senators, Senator Bennett and Senator Hickenlooper, standing up recently to demand a meeting with the Secretary of Defense and holding up other appointees. Obviously, this should be pursued at the highest level as governor, making sure that the Space Command remains in Colorado remains my highest priority. I've worked with Congressman Lamborn, our senators, on that, and they know that anything they ask of me, I stand ready to do.
Can you not just call Joe and say, hey, Joe, can't do this to Colorado?
Well, first of all, I think he's more likely to respond to the pressure from our senators, and I'm glad to see them exerting it. But, of course, this is a decision that needs to be done on the up and up. Many of us feel that the decision was wrongly made and not on the up and up to move the Space Command to an area with less preparedness and higher costs. And so it's really seeking to counter that poorly informed decision that many of us believe was made for political reasons, and make sure that Space Command is in the place it should be to maximize our readiness as a nation.
Robert, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. And Governor, thanks for being here. I think we all know that inflation is hitting our businesses and our communities pretty significantly, and it's especially related to high energy bills. And I think, as you know, we're working diligently to meet and exceed the state's and our own climate and energy goals by 2030 and 2050. And then we're also making significant investments in renewables to further diversify our energy mix, and really as a way to protect against the volatility of natural gas costs, which is the primary driver of high energy bills. With that backdrop in mind, can you share with us how your $120 million clean energy tax credit plan can help businesses and communities and customers keep energy bills low?
Yeah, so one of the very exciting tax credits we've submitted is around clean energy. So the biggest part is accelerating the electric vehicle transition, including e-bikes. Also looking at building the capacity to kind of have that stable power source for the grid in terms of geothermal and hydrogen storage. Looking at a piece around advanced aviation fuels, which also ties into the aerospace industry. We've really seen, not just now, but also from the Texas storm a couple years ago, we've seen the impact of our over-reliance on natural gas, namely a storm in Texas or a war in Europe can force Colorado ratepayers to pay more. So we've got to achieve energy independence, make sure that we are not beholden to these external events, and that we invest in lower cost, reliable energy for our grid. And part of doing that is, and part of what the tax credit plan boosts, is electrification. Obviously, as we electrify, that allows for additional capacity to be brought on the grid. That new capacity is all renewable and lower cost, reliable energy. And so the more that we can drive that, the sooner we can become immune to these enormous price spikes in natural gas that are hurting businesses and individuals in our state and other states.
Excellent. And delivering safe, reliable, low-cost energy, those are the watchwords of our industry. We know that that's important to the businesses and customers that we serve. It will require significant investment in transmission, and we are closely working with our customers and communities in the state to build out about 600 miles of new transmission lines as a part of the Colorado Power Pathway in eastern Colorado. That'll also help to facilitate more and allow us to capture more of the region's wind and solar resources. With that backdrop, how does bringing good-paying green jobs to the state's Eastern Plains communities fit into your vision of Colorado's clean energy economy?
Certainly, I would look at where we have existing infrastructure, and so that would mean, for instance, areas that have coal-powered plants that are either have closed or are closing, ranging from Craig and Hayden to Pueblo. There's various years associated with phasing out the highest cost form of energy on the grid, which is coal energy. But we already have the transmission infrastructure in place. So let's look at what other kinds of energy, including solar, wind, geothermal, electric, can already leverage that existing infrastructure, as well as the broader discussion around interstate reliability and connectivity through the grid, which we're excited to work on as well, to make sure that we have more of a regional approach to balancing the grid, which leads to more reliability and lower rates.
So we know that technology and innovation also remain key drivers for nearly every industry, including ours. How can the business community, customers, and the state continue to collaborate to take advantage of new opportunities in technology like the Heat Beneath Our Feet initiative, to continue leading the clean energy transition, and to continue delivering clean energy for our customers and our communities at the lowest possible cost?
Yeah, so I would say, I don't know if I would use the word new technology, but I would say it's emerging technology that it will help kind of fill that final 20% to help get us off of kind of unreliable natural gas that can lead to price spikes. It's looking at storage, it's looking at geothermal electric, looking at hydrogen, potentially nuclear, and other ways that we can make sure that we're able to bridge that final kind of 20% for low-cost, reliable baseload to power the grid.
And then my last question, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, the electrification of transportation and how important that is. It's something we're very excited about, and it's critically necessary to being able to achieve our clean energy goals. But there are some challenges remain. As you may know, we will be filing a 3-year transportation electrification plan with the Public Utilities Commission in May. And like you and other state legislative leaders, we're working to find ways to further support the ability of all of our customers to participate. What can Colorado companies and executives and our communities do today to further support and accelerate the equitable EV transition in the state?
So I would certainly look at, to the extent you have parking lots and facilities providing electric vehicle charging infrastructure there for your employees. Many of them are looking to save on the high cost of gas and operate electric vehicles, and many of them don't need EV charging there because they only live 10, 15, 20 miles. But if they are commuting 100 miles to work every day, they probably want to charge their car with a high cost of housing. Until we fix that, you probably do have employees that are commuting 100 miles. So they need the charging there as well. Leading into that with the support for our EV tax credit package. What reason we sort of came up with this is there are significant federal tax credits for EVs under the Inflation Reduction Act, but they're not live yet because the cars being made don't meet the overly rigorous, shall we say, Made in America criteria, because we simply don't have the infrastructure, particularly around storage technology, for that kind of manufacturing here yet. It will come online at some point, in part because of this, over the next few years. But we wanted to fill that gap and make sure that nobody had an economic reason to put off their decision to buy an electric vehicle if they choose. So our proposal is essentially about a $5,000 tax credit for EVs. We're certainly very supportive of work that companies do to have charging infrastructure available for employees who want it.
Governor, the $5,000 tax credit, $5,000 tax credit for EVs, I'm sorry, I want to make sure I'm understanding you, at the federal level or at the state level?
So that's a state level. We currently have, it's either 2,000 or 3,000 if somebody has that. I think it's 2, perhaps 3 is the current one. 3, yeah. So, and then we're looking at increasing that to 5 temporarily until the federal one can kick in. So I think it's looked at for perhaps up to 3 years.
So it's a bridge.
Level. It's a bridge.
I do want to ask you just a quick question about EVs. Do you sense that we're at a tipping point? You've seen news reports about more people are buying EVs. But I do wonder from your end if we're at a tipping point. And I guess the question, maybe Robert can also weigh in, is do we have the infrastructure once that happens?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's driven by economics, and we are, in fact, at the tipping point. If you looked at lifetime cost of operating a vehicle, now not every consumer looks at it that way. Electric vehicles cost a little more upfront and have lower cost over the lifetime. Why? Significantly lower per mileage fuel costs, usually a quarter of the cost of gas, depending on the price of gas. Also significantly reduced maintenance needs over time. So lifetime ownership, already competitive, it's crossed over. They're slightly more upfront, which is what the tax credits are designed to address. Performance, people will have their preferences. In some criteria, they perform better and faster. In other criteria, they still might not be as far on mileage coverage. They're rapidly getting there, and many are, but it depends on the use case for the individual. So right now, over 10% of vehicles sold in our state are electric, and that's likely to increase even more as people see the opportunity to save money if they choose to operate an electric vehicle.
Robert, just really quickly, sir.
Yeah, and we're committed to making sure that the infrastructure exists to alleviate range anxiety, which will then spur more customers to buy electric vehicles. And so we're very much aligned with the state's 974,000 or 940,000 vehicle goal. We will need more capacity to serve that additional electrification, both for transportation electrification and building electrification. And we're currently building our plans out to be able to meet those needs. So we will be prepared.
Thank you. Dr. Marks?
Yeah, this is so much fun getting to watch Robert ask the governor questions that I've heard asked to Robert before. And now I get to ask questions on workforce and education. As a leader of a university and also an organization that's a large employer, I every day think about the importance of thinking and rethinking talent development and workforce. And I think for a lot of people in this room, it's their number one issue right now. And I want to talk about the role of industry. What I know from working with many of you, and I want to call out Debbie Brown's leadership in the Colorado Business Table and also many others in the room who are thinking differently right now about how industry and academia can lean in together to solve some of our greatest workforce challenges. I wanted to ask you how we as a group come together to help employers develop talent for all of their jobs, but also for the higher paying jobs, often which do require bachelor's degrees or higher degrees, and how we can think specifically about how we bring all Coloradans into the mix as opposed to being primarily an importer of talent.
I would encourage Colorado Business Roundtable and the private sector to really lean in to the eager and willing public partners, community colleges, universities, county workforce centers that on their own will do their best, but are much better informed by your leadership and involvement with regard to the skills that are needed for you to remain competitive, where the jobs are available, and to kind of look at the way we do, human capital, everything from high schools to workforce centers to community colleges to other training programs, and really make sure it's driven by the private sector goals and needs is absolutely critical.
And what's exciting now in the conversations that I'm in and the leaders in this room is they are leaning in more significantly because we care about the future of Colorado, and maybe because we're somewhat desperate at this moment. But what is your vision for what that partnership looks like?
Yeah, so it's both large scale and state advised through some of our work, for instance, of the 1330 Task Force, but also very locally driven in terms of collaborations with local and regional universities, colleges, community colleges, high schools, et cetera. So it's everything from, at the for instance, the new Cherry Creek Innovation Center, they have an aviation tech training track for high schoolers that can then matriculate to be part of the aerospace industry. Some might go on to even become engineers, but also aircraft technicians and others. Healthcare fields. At the community college level, it's about aligning with what's needed. Full associate's degrees, but also certificate programs in areas where we know we need people with skills. The state work around supporting and encouraging that. For instance, I mentioned we made it free to become an EMT, nurse assistant, and phlebotomist and a number of other job occupations. We're expanding that to construction fields and law enforcement and others to remove that economic barrier for people that might very well have to work a full-time job at a lower wage while they're training with the skills they need to be able to fill a higher and greater need in the economy.
And it's no surprise to anybody that higher ed and also K-12 is under great scrutiny, both here in Colorado and nationally right now. What would you feel would be a good legislative outcome from the session in that space?
The whole preschool through college? I mean, everything? I mean, it's a lot.
Everything.
Well,
Everything. We got about 10 minutes to talk about
that
everything.
one we could have a whole session on. Some of you might also know this is some of my professional background, service background. I served 6 years on the State Board of Education, chaired that. I've started 2 charter schools and was superintendent of 1, so I've been very active in this space. I would say one of the areas that we identified as a drop-off in math performance, where Colorado, by the way, is above average nationally on reading and math, but we are now only slightly above average in math, and we've had a significant drop-off. It's a very simple data-driven policy solution, which are essentially after-school programs to support math achievement. And so we're requesting through the legislature after-school support for math achievement, which we are confident will address that gap. There are many different initiatives that districts are leading to address achievement gaps. I recently highlighted a number of schools in our state. We call it the Governor's Bright Spot Awards. These were schools that improved student achievement during the 2 very challenging years that schools faced in 20 and 21. So whereas across the country performance decreased, Colorado above average, but overall, like every state, had some challenges. There were a number of schools where performance increased, math, reading, science, over the last 2 years. And so we want to thank them first. And we gave them $50,000, not a lot, but thank you, $50,000, we're highlighting you. But more importantly, learn from them to see what practices at the site level can and should be used by other school districts to improve achievement that have worked on the ground in Colorado during a challenging time.
Governor and our panelists, human beings are not really good at predicting the future, but we're very good at adapting when we have a problem. And a lot of the problems that you laid out here We're really good at adapting to them and finding potential solutions. And a key to that, of course, is a good educational program, but also the university, community colleges, K-12 system being nimble and being open to fine-tuning their programs so that they support the industries. And I do want to ask Dave really quickly, because I've seen this in other states where your company, for example, has partnerships with universities and community colleges to really fine-tune so that you get what you're getting. And I wonder if, and sorry, again, I just got here about a year ago, so I'm learning as I'm asking. Can you talk just a little bit about what those programs are? And then, Governor, what can you do as a state to support that?
Sure, there are a couple that jump out. First, robotics program, which is an international program that teaches kids robotics at the elementary. First Lego, first tech is in middle school, and then obviously the robotics. They hold the regionals here at DU. It's a phenomenal 2 days. If you need some entertainment, to watch what these kids have developed in really 60 days. They start out in January and have to produce a robot that will do all sorts of crazy things that are given to them. I think the governor's leadership in again, the 1330 and the 1350 Opportunity Now, there are a number of educational programs that Boeing leans into in Colorado Springs, as well as up here. Our Jeppesen folks that you know that are fully integrated in the Boeing company now are number one in digital aviation in commercial airplanes. So I think, again, we're looking to partner with anybody and everybody that's going to advance education opportunity, and unfortunately, resources drive opportunity. I wish that wasn't as true as it is, but the ability to bring resources to the table and help, as part of the HTI program that went to rural school districts statewide, and the amount of transformational change they made at the high school level in their curriculum was phenomenal, with just a little bit of resources that were provided by the nonprofits.
We have schools like Colorado Early College High School, where every student graduates with an associate's degree. Over 40% of Colorado high school students take at least one dual or concurrent enrollment class through a college or community college while they're in high school, some of them all the way through a certificate or associate's degree. And we need to up the bar on those kinds of collaborations. I think somebody in your video who I saw that you used, Don Haddad, St. Frank School District, established a P-Tech high school in partnership with local employers. He's one of the best superintendents at really partnering with the private sector around meeting skills needs. And that needs to be driven by the school district. So my homework for you is to run for school board in your community. We need members of the business community to stand up and run for school board and help lead the way in forging those partnerships. You laugh, but I'm recruiting you right now. You got to run. So we have 178 school districts in our state, and really the kind of innovation that St. Vrain has shown with Don Haddad's leadership is something that is completely replicable across every school district in our state.
Yeah, I also suggest you're running for a school board. Before you do that, you let me know so we can write about it, okay?
Give him the exclusive, and he'll give you extra ink.
We started the program. There was a survey that Debbie had mentioned about the business community being a bit pessimistic about 2023, but I wanted to see if I can end on a more optimistic note. So I want to ask our panel members, and then lastly the governor, what the silver lining is that they have seen. We've had 2 years of a pandemic, and last year was a good year when we had, we overcame this very difficult, a challenge that just crushed us in so many ways, something like that. But so I want to ask Lorena, what for you has been the silver lining, and what do you look forward toward this coming year?
I want more people eating out. Yes, it was very 2 difficult years. We still don't see the volume. A lot of businesses are still struggling. So keep thinking small business, keep supporting, order, cater, do everything that you can do with your big business, and support small businesses, because we are the motor of the economy, right? The governor say it all the time. So please support the small business.
Thank you. Dave?
To me, I think it is the mission to Mars. It's been a generation, if not a generation and a half. If you have a lot of gray hair, you remember the Apollo missions and the Saturn program and the The excitement in the nation, that is not a partisan effort in any way, shape, or form. So space exploration, getting to Mars, we have a number of aerospace companies in the state that participate in that path to getting there. We just circled the moon, as most of you are well aware. So for me, the silver lining is seeing how the country's going to come together and support space exploration. Science has a big part of that, as well as engineering and aerospace. So I'm looking forward to seeing the company or the country come together and really get excited about space exploration.
Dr. Marks? Go ahead, Dr. Marks, and then we'll have Robert.
Crises tends to jumpstart innovation, and I think we've all experienced front and center all of the hardships and who really matters and who we need to support in this society right now. And I've been buoyed by the collaboration that this community has shown in coming together to innovate to strengthen our economy.
Thank you. Robert?
Several silver linings, but I'll say human resiliency and human ingenuity, particularly in our industry. We're seeing emerging and new technologies that we're able to deploy that are at the intersection of energy policy and climate policy, where we're really being able to save the planet. And that's what's really exciting to me. The transmission project that I talked about earlier, we just announced today actually a partnership with a 100-hour iron air battery, which is an amazing new technology. And so new and emerging technologies that are allowing us to solve the climate crisis. And then I will also add that as we're building new infrastructure, those are jobs. Those are opportunities for people. Those are good paying jobs that are paths to the middle class. And so I'm very excited about the future on so many different levels.
Governor?
Well, very concretely, we've learned it's sort of accelerated a number of trends that were occurring anyway. One of those is location-independent employment. So, for instance, as a model employer of the state, 31,000 employees, we're reducing our square footage by over 1 million square feet over the next 2 years. We're 1 year into this 3-year initiative because, like a lot of employers, we've realized that we can have shared space, hybrid space, obviously not, in some cases all remote, but more often it's a form of, hybrid or shared space coming in a few days a week kind of thing. More productivity, greater employee retention and morale, savings to taxpayers. And it also is a lifeline to rural Colorado to have the opportunity to have location-independent employment in towns where you can then patronize a local restaurant, local stores, support the economy, and be able to perhaps go into one of our cities once or twice a week and be able to live the lifestyle you choose to live and support the local economy in rural Colorado.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, our panel members. To me, just really quickly, the silver lining is that when we got here and we picked a school, and thankfully the school was open to having our kid enrolled. He's 11 years old, and we picked him up first day of school, and I asked him, how's school? And he said, Dad, I'm ecstatic. And I'm like, why? And he said, our school has a no homework policy, and that to me is the silver lining.
No homework policy.
Again, thank you, everybody. Dr. Marks, Robert, Governor Dave, and Lorena, thank you for your time. I want to call on Carla Nugent to give the closing remarks.
Thank you, Robert. Good to see you. Good to see you.
All right, on behalf of Colorado Business Roundtable, we thank you for joining us today. We thank our panelists and Governor Polis. We thank you for joining us in this open format where we can collaborate, have conversation. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Carla Nugent. I serve as the Chief Revenue Officer, and I'm a founding partner for Wayfield Group Contracting. We're a regional industrial, commercial, electrical contractor. We're homegrown here in Colorado, and we're proud to have this as our home base. I'm part of the Colorado Business Roundtable Executive Board because I'm passionate about what we're doing, and I do believe in business as a force for good. I also believe that we're not about buildings and facilities, we're about people, right? Majority of our businesses employ people. And so how do we stay connected on those issues? Things that are facing you as an individual, as a parent, as a brother, sister, community member, as a Coloradoan, right? Those are facing the same issues that business is dealing with. So how do we connect, collaborate, advocate, possibly innovate and stay in front of these issues so that we make Colorado a great place. So for those of you that are interested in learning more about the Colorado Business Roundtable, if I could have our board members just raise their hands. We have board members here joining us today. They're happy to share more information, get you involved so you know what's coming up next. So thank you for joining us today.